The FBI director just got caught in a lie, not once, but twice. And the man calling him out didn't just make an accusation. He dropped evidence on live television that left the entire hearing room silent. What you're about to hear isn't just another political fight. It's a direct clash over truth, power, and whether the top law enforcement official in America has been lying under oath. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to, because the facts he laid out spoke louder than any outrage could. When he began his questioning, the tension was already thick.
Thanks, Chairman. My comments today about FBI chiefs testifying honestly and not lying to Congress are particularly relevant in light of your opening statement. Let me start with the basic fact behind all of this, that the current FBI director pled the fifth in the matter where he ended up providing grand jury testimony. We've never had an FBI director come through this committee who had pled the fifth before. As you know, when you plead the fifth, to do it honestly, you have to have a good faith belief that your testimony would subject you to criminal liability, which meant if Patel was being honest, he had a good faith belief that his testimony would subject him to criminal liability. As that went forward, he ended up getting immunity from the government in order to testify. If this were a court, a civil court, a judge would allow an adverse inference to be drawn against the witness who had asserted the fifth. In Patel's proceedings, we were never even allowed to get to the bottom of the grand jury testimony. Why he pled the fifth, what he said, all of that was papered over as he went through this committee to confirmation. So for obvious reasons, I pursued that question, just as you would, Chairman, if the shoe were on the other foot. And I believe that Patel lied to us in the committee. He said that he couldn't share his grand jury testimony, and I'm quoting him here, because there's a court order on that case. He said, he said again, I can't go into court orders granted by the DC district chief judge. And then when I pressed him further, he challenged me saying, you want me to violate a court order? He then went on to say to Senator Booker that his grand jury testimony has been sealed by the Department of Justice, and I'm not allowed to discuss it here. Well, as it turns out, none of that was true. All of that was false. And we know that because the DC district chief judge, who he mentioned in his false statement to this committee, said, and I'm quoting the judge, July 2025, Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure 6E allows witnesses like Patel to divulge the contents of their testimony, meaning that nothing was preventing him from doing so before the committee, unquote. So it sure looks like he lied about that. So in his recent testimony, I asked him again. And now he offered the committee a new and different lie, which is that he had released the transcript already. He said, first of all, I'd love my grand jury testimony to be released. I want it made public. And then he said, I wanted the transcript released, and I will get it to you, sir, to me. I wanted the transcript released, and I will get you the transcript. He said to me, we can confirm that pursuant to my action, that grand jury testimony has been released, the transcript. He said the transcript has been released publicly. He told Senator Booker, well, I don't have the grand jury transcript That's why I released it. So, as it turns out, no transcript was released. He was making up that lie, probably to get away from having to answer our questions. But now we have an FBI director who first lied in committee about a non-existent court order and had that lie exploded by the actual judge who he claimed had him under court order, and then lied in committee about having released a transcript that we all know has not been released. I think on that state of facts, we're entitled to get the transcript that he says he wants us to have, that he says he released publicly, and that the judge has confirmed is not under any court order of protection. So, Mr. Chairman, I look forward to working with you. I know you have a strong interest in FBI chiefs testifying honestly in this committee and not lying to Congress to try to get to the bottom of what is going on, because those seem like two pretty flagrant and obviously provable lies. And we'll follow up for further assistance to get to the bottom of this. But I don't think it's asking too much to ask the committee's support, to ask Director Patel to do what he says he has already done, which is to release the grand jury transcript of his testimony and provide it to us. Thank you.
The hearing wasn't supposed to go this way. But the moment Whitehouse opened his folder, everything changed. He started by reminding the committee of a simple but stunning reality. The current FBI director, Patel, once pled the Fifth. Think about that. The person leading the nation's top investigative agency, the one tasked with protecting truth and upholding the law, invoked his right to remain silent in a case where he was expected to testify honestly. That alone sent shockwaves through Congress. But as Whitehouse calmly pointed out, pleading the Fifth isn't just a procedural move. You can only do it if you believe your own words might expose you to criminal liability. In other words, Patel wasn't protecting national security. He was protecting himself, and yet, somehow, after pleading the Fifth, he went on to receive immunity from the government, clearing the way for him to testify without consequences. It was a strange twist that few noticed at the time, but Whitehouse didn't forget. Because for him, honesty under oath isn't optional. It's the foundation of public trust. And when a man who once claimed the right to silence his own defense becomes the FBI's top cop, that trust deserves to be questioned. Whitehouse pressed further. He wanted to know why Patel, when questioned by the Senate, claimed he couldn't share his grand jury testimony. According to Patel, there was a court order that prevented him from speaking. He said it flat out, twice, even challenging Whitehouse directly. You want me to violate a court order? It was a bold claim, a legal shield that sounded legitimate, until someone checked, and that's when the truth unraveled. The very judge Patel had cited came forward and said there was no such order. None. In fact, under federal rules, witnesses like Patel are free to disclose their own grand jury testimony whenever they choose. Nothing had been stopping him. No order, no gag, no secrecy clause. That meant the FBI director hadn't just misspoken. He'd fabricated a legal barrier that didn't exist. And when you're the top law enforcement officer in the country, that kind of lie isn't small. It's dangerous. But instead of clearing the air, Patel doubled down. When Whitehouse asked again, this time, directly, Patel changed his story. He claimed the transcript of his grand jury testimony had already been released to the public. He even insisted that he'd make sure the committee got a copy. We can confirm, Patel said confidently, that my grand jury testimony has been released. It was a strong statement. Too strong. Because there was only one problem. It wasn't true. No transcript was ever released. No record ever surfaced. The public never saw a word of it. Patel had lied again, this time on camera, before the very committee that confirmed him. Whitehouse didn't need to shout. He simply laid out the timeline. The first lie about a court order. The second about a released transcript. Both easily disproved. Both made under oath. And both striking at the very heart of the FBI's credibility. The gravity of it hit the room instantly. Because this wasn't just about one man's testimony. It was about what happens when those at the top treat the truth as optional, when accountability becomes a performance instead of a principle. For decades, the FBI has been seen as the gold standard of justice, the agency that stands above politics, above spin, above manipulation. But Whitehouse's evidence showed something else, an institution that's starting to rot from the inside. When the director himself can't tell the truth to Congress, What happens to the rest of the system built on his word? It wasn't just a political scandal. It was a moral one. Because as Whitehouse explained, if this were a civil court, Patel's Fifth Amendment plea would have allowed an adverse inference, meaning a judge could assume the worst about why he stayed silent. But Congress didn't even get that far. They were stonewalled, denied answers, and handed excuses wrapped in legal jargon that didn't exist. And now, years later, the pattern was finally visible. 2 lies, 2 opportunities to come clean, 2 moments that could define not just Patel's career, but the credibility of the FBI itself. Whitehouse ended his remarks with a challenge. If Patel insists he's innocent, if he truly believes there's nothing to hide, then release the transcript. Make it public. Let the American people see exactly what was said behind closed doors. After all, if transparency is harmless, why keep it buried? That question hung heavy in the air, because deep down, everyone in that room knew the answer. It's not the documents that are dangerous, it's what they might reveal. And here's where this gets even more serious. Patel isn't just another bureaucrat. As FBI director, he has access to the nation's most sensitive information. He's the one overseeing investigations into corruption, foreign interference, classified leaks, and more. His word can shape the outcome of national cases. His integrity can make or break justice itself. So when someone like Whitehouse stands up and says, "This man lied to Congress," it's not a partisan shot. It's a constitutional alarm. Because once the truth bends at the top, every layer beneath starts to crumble. You can feel it in Whitehouse's tone. He wasn't grandstanding. He was warning. Warning that oversight is meaningless if the overseers are lied to. Warning that democracy doesn't collapse overnight. It decays slowly when those in power believe they're untouchable. And maybe that's why this moment matters so much. It's not just about Patel. It's about what his behavior represents. A growing belief among powerful officials that accountability is negotiable, that rules only apply when convenient, and that honesty can be sacrificed for survival. In a way, this hearing wasn't about uncovering the past. It was about testing the future, whether America still values truth when it's inconvenient, whether the institutions built to protect justice will actually enforce it. And as Whitehouse laid out Patel's contradictions one by one, the silence in that room said it all. No one could defend it. No one could explain it away. Because when you're caught lying about a court order that never existed and a transcript that never appeared, there's no spin left, only exposure. But here's what's truly unsettling. This might just be the beginning. If Patel's testimony was built on false claims, what else has been hidden under the same excuses? How many investigations, reports, or internal reviews were shaped by those same patterns of concealment? Because once an official lies to Congress without consequence, the message spreads that truth is optional and accountability is negotiable. Whitehouse's demand was simple but seismic. Release the transcript. Prove the transparency you claim to stand for. Because as he reminded the committee, sunlight is the only disinfectant that still works in Washington. And that line hit harder than anything else. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was true. In a city built on secrecy, honesty has become the rarest currency. And when the director of the FBI is accused of counterfeiting it, the cost isn't political, it's national. That's what makes this moment extraordinary. It's not about partisanship. It's about principle. The belief that no one, not even the FBI director, is above truth. For now, Patel remains in his position, and the questions hang unanswered. Will Congress compel the release of the transcript? Will there be consequences for the false statements? Or will this story, like so many others, fade into the noise of Washington's endless spin cycle? Whitehouse seems determined not to let that happen. And whether you agree with him or not, his message couldn't be clearer. If the institutions meant to protect democracy start hiding from it, the damage won't be reversible. Because when those sworn to uphold the law start bending it, justice becomes a matter of convenience. And when the truth becomes negotiable, trust dies quietly. The next time you hear someone claim they're protecting the system by keeping secrets, remember this hearing. Remember the judge's words. Remember the lies exposed on record. And ask yourself, if they're hiding nothing, why lie at all? If you believe the truth still matters, that honesty from those in power is worth defending, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and share it. Because the more light we shine on stories like this, the harder it becomes for the powerful to hide in the dark.